uh, in the service for?
For about 3 years, and of which about half the time was spent in training, and the balance and being stationed, and our crew flying finalized, and we flew, in our case, for mostly 30 operations before that was the extent of our life as a bombing or as a flight, and then we went on furlough. And while the war progressed, a lot of the bombing people went back for second and third tours, but in my case it wasn't the case, because I was a little late in the war, or fortunately or not, depending on how you looked at it. But when I finished my tour, I was sent home and allowed to make my decision about going to university. I went into combat when we got into our final station, which is in the 6th Group Command, and we were part of 3 aerodromes that had planes that flew together in groups. So we were part of that.
Were you ever in combat where you were under attack, people were shooting you?
Yes, where they were all the stations, the German stations in Europe, had groups with gunners on the ground, and you'd fly up in what was known as flak, which was just simply gun armament that was sent up to try and shoot down the airplanes. Fortunately, we weren't hit.
Did you lose a lot of friends in the war at that time?
No, actually, the trainees from Canada just went, and they were selected for various groups. But I ended off with the Alouette Squadron, which is basically a French-Canadian squadron, even though there were no French Canadians in our group, but in our plane. And that's the station we were on, called the Alouette level.
What was the scariest moment that you experienced during the war?
I can't really say that. We flew, and every bombing run was a little exciting, because the people who were on the ground were busy fighting. The flak was usually very thick, and they're determined to try and get you down. But fortunately, Alouette Squadron. What
were your living accommodations while you were in combat?
We lived in the stations, in Nissen huts usually, and with very basic Army requirements, whatever they were.
Describe them a little bit.
Yes, the beds were bunk beds, sort of style of thing. They're basic metal frame things with what they called what did they call them? But they're made out of 3 cushions, really. They were called, what were they called? Anyhow, it took 3 to make up a bed, so that you could, if they slid apart, then you were in the middle on the springs. But by and large, you could wrap a blanket around them or something. But we had blankets, and they were Nissen hut style, and they would have a stove at the end, and if you're lucky, you stayed warm. That's it. But we were dressed well, and for our type of work in the air, you needed warm clothing, because it was quite cold out there, and we were able to avoid it.
Do you have any other?
What did you do for leisure time?
I don't think it was a fun time when we were flying. In between our we would have time off, you might call it, and we went on furlough for short periods, allowing us to go away for a week or so, and we would go to the closest city from where we were located, or in the general area. We were quite free to travel through England and anywhere could possibly.
What type of plane did you use?
Did we fly?
Yeah.
I was on a Halifax, which was a British-built bomber, and there was a consequent to the ones that we flew. There were Lancaster bombers that had a little larger capacity, and also they had a different type of engine, but basically they all flew at the same rate. When we flew as groups, we pretty well stayed that way. But the Lancaster had a little more capacity in terms of bomb load. But that's about it. And it was a little more advanced, so it maybe stood up better, I don't know. But by and large, we really didn't know too much about it. But the Lancaster bomber had an engine that was a little more advanced, and was consequently used in some, not fighters so much as multiple engine fighters.
Did you have a rank? At what point in time did you discover the atrocities that were going on in Europe?
We weren't told, and it's only afterwards that people got to know, and when the Americans got through into the Nazi camps and found the people that were being killed and maimed and everything else. They had them working in their plants to making armament for their requirements, and usually not being fed, or not properly anyhow. And it was not a nice scene, and the more you got to know about it, the more you hated them for it.
How did you feel the day when the war was declared over?
Well, we were happy about it, but by then we were already deep in our schooling, and we were pleased for the people who got out and alive, and we were glad that our people won.
Thank you, Bill, for sharing your experiences during the war with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.